Vivid verses.
The wine was a Pinot she'd picked out, and I remember noticing how she rolled the glass between her palms before she said it, like she was warming the words up so they'd go down easier. I've been thinking a lot, Theo. That was my first signal. She only used my full name when she was about to do something she'd decided was brave. I set down my fork. The lamb was good. I'd spent an hour on it because she'd come home saying her week had been brutal, and the way I showed up for her had always been through small, specific acts. That was, I would soon learn, part of the problem. You're reliable, she said. You're steady. You're God. Theo, you're the kind of safe I've needed. You really are. Here it comes, I thought. The butt is already loaded. But I don't think safe is the same as alive. And I think I've been confusing them. I think I've been letting myself shrink into this really comfortable thing we have, because it's easier than admitting I want something that actually scares me. I picked up my water glass. Didn't drink, just held it. You're saying I'm boring. I'm not saying that. You are, though. It's all right. You can say it. She looked relieved, which told me everything. Relief meant she'd been expecting a fight, which meant she'd rehearsed one, which meant this wasn't a conversation. It was a performance she needed me to sit through so she could feel like she'd done it the right way. Don't help her feel good about this. Don't make it easy, but don't make it hard either. Just don't perform. Okay, I said. Okay. I hear you. She blinked. That's it. What do you want me to say, Claire? And here's where I watched her closely. Because I'd been with this woman long enough to know her face the way you know a room in the dark. I could navigate it without thinking. And what I saw, in the flicker before she composed herself, was disappointment. She wanted me to argue. She'd wanted the drama of me begging, so she could feel the weight of what she was walking away from. Instead, I'd handed her the door, unlocked, with the porch light on. I don't want you to think this means I don't love you. I do. I love who you are. I just think I need to find out who I am without. Claire. Yeah. You don't need to explain. I got it the first time. I stood up, started clearing the plates. She sat there, watching me, and I could feel her trying to figure out what script I was working from, because I'd clearly abandoned hers. In the kitchen, rinsing the plates, I ran the math. Lisa's in both our names. Her name's first, though. She signed it originally, and I was added later. 11 months left. She makes more. She'll want to keep it. Fine. The joint savings is mostly mine anyway. She stopped contributing when she started her consulting pivot. Easy to untangle. The dog is hers from before us. The car is mine. The furniture, most of it's hers. I don't care about the furniture. What I care about is not becoming a story she tells her friends. Not the sad version. Not the pathetic version. Not the he took it so hard version. I came back out. She was still sitting there, wine glass empty now, refilling it. I think you should stay at Marguerite's tonight, I said. She looked up. What? You heard me. I'll be out by Sunday. Theo, you don't have to. We can figure this out. We don't have to rush. I'm not rushing. I'm just being efficient. I picked up my own glass, took a sip finally. You've clearly thought about this for a while. I'm not going to sit in the apartment for 6 weeks while we process something you've already decided. That's not fair to either of us. I haven't decided anything. I let that one sit in the air. Claire, you picked out the wine. Her face did something small and complicated. I'll message you about the logistics tomorrow, I said. Tonight, just Marguerite's. Please. She left. She took an overnight bag and said we'd talk properly the next day, and she hugged me at the door, and I let her, and I did not hug her back hard, and I did not hug her back soft. I just put my arms around her the way you do when a cousin you haven't seen in years shows up at a funeral. Present, polite, unavailable. When the door closed, I stood in the entryway for maybe 30 seconds. I remember the sound of the hallway clock, which was hers, which I would no longer have to listen to. Then I went to my laptop. First, the subscriptions. Streaming services in my name that she uses, cancel. The wine club she got me into, cancel. The couples therapy app we never actually used, cancel. The premium grocery delivery she put on my card, cancel. Then re-register with a different payment method if I still want it. Second, the joint credit card. Freeze tonight. Call in the morning to formally close. Third, and this one I had to think about, the trip. We had tickets booked for a 2-week thing I'd been looking forward to for months. Paid mostly by me. Non-refundable on the flights. Go alone. Obvious. Don't even pretend to debate it. I didn't feel sad yet. I knew it was coming. I'm not an idiot. I knew grief would show up in its own time. But right then, in that exact hour, what I felt was something close to relief, and I didn't trust it, so I kept moving. I opened a new document. I titled it Year 1. I've been carrying something around for a while. Call it restlessness. Call it a quiet sense that I was not, in fact, living the version of my life that matched what I was capable of. I've been attributing that feeling to work stress, to getting older, to the grind. Now, sitting in a kitchen that smelled faintly of rosemary and a woman who had just called me boring, I recognized it for what it was. She wasn't wrong, I thought. She was just wrong about who the problem was. I'd been shrinking, not because she asked me to, exactly, but because that's what happens in certain relationships. You make yourself easier to be with, and the easier you get, the less of you there is, and then one day someone looks across a dinner table and says you're not alive enough for them. And they're right, but they're blaming the wrong person. I started typing. 1 body. Back to the gym. 5 days a week. Not for her. Not for anyone. 2 money. Aggressive. Consolidate. Invest what's been sitting. 3 the idea. I stopped there, on number 3. The idea had been sitting in a notebook for about 18 months. It was a specific kind of product. I won't bore you with the details because the details aren't the point, but it was something I'd sketched out one weekend while Claire was away at a wellness retreat, and I'd shown it to her when she got back, and she'd said it was cute and really smart, babe, and then asked if I was going to clean out the gutters. I put the notebook in a drawer. For 18 months. Build it, I typed. Actually build it. 6-month prototype. 12-month launch. 4 travel. 3 countries, minimum, in the next 18 months. Real ones. Not vacations. Stays. I looked at the list. I saved it. I closed the laptop. Then I went to bed, and I did not cry, and I did not lie awake, and I slept like I was being paid for it. The next morning, she called at 9:14. I let it ring. She called again at 10:02. I let it ring. At 10:30, she texted, "Can we talk? I don't want this to be ugly." I wrote back, "It won't be. I'll have logistics for you by end of day. Theo, please can we just talk?" End of day. I put the phone face down. Rule 1, I thought. Do not let her set the tempo. She picked the song. She doesn't get to pick the beat. I call my buddy Oren, who's an attorney, not a divorce attorney, just a guy I trust who knows how to read a lease. "Is this the call I think it is?" he said. "Probably." She, "Were you?" Her. "Last night. You okay?" "I'm excellent. Actually," which is a little concerning. He laughed. "That's the adrenaline. Give a week." "What do you need?" I told him. He said he'd look at the lease. He said if I wanted out of it, it was almost certainly possible, given her income versus mine and the fact that her name was primary. "Here's the thing, though," he said. "Don't rush out of something you actually want. You like that apartment." "I don't," I said. "I liked it with her." "That's different." "Fair." I called the landlord. I was polite. I explained the situation in 2 sentences and did not editorialize. He said he'd need to discuss it with the property management company, but that if Claire was willing to sign a new lease in her name only, we could probably have it wrapped in 2 weeks. I texted Claire, "If you want to keep the apartment, call the landlord. He's expecting you. I'll be out by Sunday. I'm not taking the furniture except the desk and the gray chair, which were mine before us. Everything else is yours. Theo." "Theo, wait. Can you please just... I feel like you've already made 100 decisions, and I haven't even." I read the message. I did not reply. I made coffee. She wants to slow it down because slowing it down is where her power lives, I thought. In ambiguity. And we'll see. In the long, emotional negotiation. That's her terrain. So don't fight her on that terrain. Move to terrain where decisions are clean and fast, and she'll either keep up or she won't. By Sunday, I was out. I rented a small one-bedroom across town that smelled faintly of paint. I brought the desk, the gray chair, my clothes, my books, my cookware. I bought all of the cookware because she didn't cook, and 3 plants I'd raised from cuttings. I did not take a single photograph. I did not take the throw blanket she'd bought me for my birthday. I did not take the framed thing from our trip upstate. The cleaner gesture is always the less sentimental one. Week 3, she showed up at my new place. I was surprised she had the address, then not surprised because she and Marguerite were close, and Marguerite knew a guy I worked with, and the world is small in the specific ways it needs to be to ruin your Tuesday. She buzzed. I looked at the intercom screen. I thought about it. Don't open it, I thought. She wants proximity. Proximity is the only asset she has left. Deny it. I pressed the button. Claire, can I come up? What do you need? I wanted to see how you're doing. I'm doing well. A pause. Can I come up? For 10 minutes. Please. If I say no, I'm the cold one. If I say yes, I'm the one still available to her. There's a third option. I'm heading out in 20, I said. I can come down. We can walk a block. She agreed. I put on a jacket, checked myself in the mirror. I was already looking different. 3 weeks of real sleep and real workouts and a diet that wasn't built around someone else's preferences will do that. And I went down. She was standing on the pavement with her arms crossed. Cold out. She'd forgotten a proper jacket, which was such a Claire thing that I felt, for the first time since the dinner, a small, unwelcome pang of tenderness. Note the tenderness. Do not act on it. You look good, she said. Thanks. How have you? How's the new place? It's fine. We walked. I kept my hands in my pockets. Theo, I feel like you hate me. I don't hate you, Claire. You're being so cold. This isn't you. I stopped walking. I looked at her for a second. This was the part where I could have gone several ways, and I watched the options in my head like cards fanning out. Option A, explain. Tell her I'm not cold. I'm just respecting what she asked for. That's warm of me. She'll like it. She'll feel seen. I'll feel like a decent person. Bad move. It keeps the conversation open, and an open conversation is what she wants. Option B, mirror her. This isn't you either, Claire. Land a small cut. Satisfying. Stupid. It invites escalation, and escalation is terrain she's better on. Option C, agree with her flatly and offer nothing. Maybe it's not, I said. Maybe the version of me you knew is gone. That happens. She stared at me. That's a really sad thing to say. I don't think it is. I think it's just true. Can we have dinner sometime? Just to talk? Not to anything. Just to talk. And here is where I understood, with a clarity that almost embarrassed me, what was happening. She had not come to apologize. She had not come because she missed me. Exactly. She had come because the story she was telling herself about the breakup required me to be devastated, to be calling, to be writing long emails, to be sending flowers to her office. And I wasn't doing any of those things, and the silence was starting to edit her narrative in a way she hadn't authorized. She didn't want me back. She wanted me to want her back, so that when she eventually said no, she could feel, once and for all, like the brave one. Don't give her the raw material. No, I said kindly. I don't think that's a good idea. Theo, I hope you take care of yourself, Claire. I really do. I started walking back to my building. I didn't turn around. I heard her say something, I think it was my name again, and I kept going, and by the time I was back upstairs, my hands were not even shaking. I made dinner. I ate at the small table by the window. I read a book. That was a test, I thought, and the test wasn't whether I still loved her. The test was whether I could be in her presence for 8 minutes and not regress into the shape she prefers me in. I had passed. The months moved. I won't dress it up. The first 6 weeks had their bad hours. There were nights I sat on the edge of the bed in that new apartment and felt, very distinctly, the ghost of the life I'd been building. Not her specifically. The architecture of the thing. The weekend rhythms. The assumed Thursdays. The way you stop noticing your own furniture because it's just a room you live in. But here's the thing about grief when you've cut cleanly. It's sharper, but it's shorter. It's the long, ambiguous dying that kills you. A clean amputation heals. A slow rot does not. I worked on the idea every night after my actual job. I found a co-founder, a woman named Isolde, sharp as a knife, who laughed at my first pitch and then, 20 minutes later, told me it was the best first pitch she'd heard in 2 years and that she'd be insulted if I brought it to anyone else before her. I liked her immediately, not romantically. She was married to a man named Bram who made furniture, actual furniture, with his hands, but in the way you like people when you recognize that your speed matches. We built the prototype in 4 months, not 6, because I had no one to come home to, and working late felt like a privilege rather than a betrayal. I went to the first country in month 5, a 2-week stay that turned into 3 because I met a supplier there who solved the problem we'd been banging our heads on. I went to the second country in month 7. I went to the third in month 10. I came back between trips. I saw my friends. I went to my sister's kid's birthday party, and my sister cornered me in the kitchen and said, "You look different, Theo. You know that, right?" Different how? I don't know. Present. You used to be, I don't want to say checked out, but checked out. Yeah. I considered that while she opened another bottle. I think I was checked out, I said. I think I thought I was being a good partner by not taking up space, and it turns out what I was really doing was slowly deleting myself. She looked at me for a long time. Mom was worried, when Claire left. Yeah, I'm not worried anymore. I kissed her on the forehead and went back out to the party. The prototype became a product. The product got funding, real funding, from real people in a quiet round that didn't make the news because we didn't want it to. It sold and I ran it lean. We hired 6 people, then 10, then 15. I was not, by any reasonable definition, rich, but I was solvent in a way I had never been, and more importantly, I was solvent because of something I had made, which is a different kind of solvency. It sits differently in the chest. My body changed. My posture changed. The way I ordered at restaurants changed. I used to be the guy who said, "I'll have whatever you're having." And now I was the guy who knew what he wanted and said it without apologizing for the specificity. I started seeing someone. Her name was Anike. She was a translator. She found me funny, which was new, because Claire had always treated my humor as a thing to endure politely. Anike laughed from the gut. We were easy together in a way I'd forgotten was possible. She was not, as a point of personal pride, a project. I was not, as a point of personal pride, her project. After 4 months, she said to me, one morning, coffee in hand, "I don't know who hurt you, but I want to thank them." "Why?" "Because you came to me assembled. I don't have to build you." I laughed. She laughed. We went back to bed. News of me traveled, the way news does, through the quiet circuits. Mutual friends. Marguerite, I learned later, had said something at a dinner party about how Theo was doing apparently incredible things and had glowed up, her word, and Claire, who had been seeing a man named Wolf. Yes, really Wolf. For about 8 months at that point, had apparently gone very quiet. Wolf was, from what I heard, exactly what she'd thought she wanted. He was a sculptor. He was intermittently employed. He was intense in the way men who use the word intense about themselves are usually difficult to live with. He had a motorcycle. He had moods. He had, crucially, not one of the qualities she had named as boring when she dismantled my life. And also, crucially, not one of the qualities that had actually kept her life functioning. They lasted, from what I could piece together, about 14 months. By the end, according to Marguerite, according at least to the version Marguerite gave to the mutual friend who gave it to my sister, who, with a specific kind of enjoyment, gave it to me, Claire had been exhausted. Thin, quiet at parties, the kind of tired that isn't about sleep. I heard all of this and felt, I'm telling you honestly, almost nothing. Not triumph, not vindication, not even pity, really. What I felt was the distant, abstract sadness you feel when you hear that a town you once lived in has had a hard winter. You wish the town well. You do not go back. The knock, because of course there was a knock, eventually came on a Saturday in autumn, about 19 months after the dinner with the Pinot. I was at home. My home, now, was not the little one-bedroom. I'd moved 11 months prior to a place with a back patio and a decent kitchen. And Ike was not there. She was at a conference, and I was hosting 6 people that evening for dinner. Isolde and Bram, my sister and her husband, a friend named Kofi from my travels, who was in town for a week, and one empty seat, which had been meant for Aunt Ike. I was prepping when the knock came. Not the buzzer, the actual door, which meant someone had been let in downstairs by another resident, which meant they were either delivering something or they had the kind of confidence that gets them past strangers. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door. Claire. She looked, and I noted this with the dispassion of a man reading a weather report. Well, not great, not bad, composed, thinner than I remembered. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize, which was a small, strange relief. I would not have wanted to see her in anything I'd once helped her pick out. "Hi," she said. "Claire, I know I shouldn't just show up. I got your address from, it doesn't matter. Can I come in? Just for a minute." The calculus, I thought, is the same as it was on the pavement, except now I have a patio full of people arriving in 2 hours, and I have a life that is demonstrably mine, and I have exactly zero incentive to be polite about this. But I'm going to be polite about this, because polite is the sharper blade. "I have people coming over," I said, "but you can come in for a few minutes." I stepped aside. She walked past me, and I smelled her perfume, a different one than she used to wear, which meant Wolf had bought it for her, or she had bought it for Wolf, or she had reinvented herself in the way people do when they're trying to leave a version of themselves behind. She stopped in the living room and looked around. "Theo, this is—" "Thanks. Sit down." She sat. I did not offer her anything to drink. I sat across from her in my gray chair, the same one from the old apartment, and I waited. "You look really good," she said. "Thank you. How are you?" "I'm well. I heard about the company." "Everybody's heard." Marguerite showed me a thing. "That's nice." A silence. She was waiting for me to ask about her. I did not ask about her. I just sat and watched her face do several quick, small things. "I'm not with Wolf anymore," she said. "Okay." It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. These things rarely are. She flinched a little at that. I hadn't meant it to land. It had just fallen out that way. I noted that I did not take it back. "Theo, I wanted to say this for a long time, and I kept putting it off because I didn't know if I had the right to, but here it comes. Stay still. I was wrong. About us. About you. About what I said that night. I was so stupid, Theo. I've thought about it every week for almost 2 years. I think about what I had and what I threw away because I don't even know what I was. Bored with myself? Probably. And I took it out on you. I said you were boring when I was boring, and..." She stopped. She was crying a little. Not performing. Exactly. I know her tears pretty well, and these were real ones, but performing enough that I could see she'd rehearsed this, too, the way she'd rehearsed the Pinot speech and the recognition of the rehearsal was the thing that steadied me. She rehearsed the breakup, and she rehearsed the comeback. Neither one was spontaneous. Neither one was really about me. This is a woman who writes her own life in drafts and casts me as a character. I am done being a character. Claire, I said. I know you probably. Claire, breathe. She breathed. I waited. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. I know it took something, and I don't want you to carry it around anymore. So from my side, it's fine. You don't owe me anything. We're square. Theo, let me finish. She went quiet. I want to say two things, and I want to say them once, and then I'd like you to go, because I have people coming over. Okay. She nodded. First, you weren't wrong that night. Not entirely. I was going through the motions. I had been for a while. Maybe we both had been. You did me a real favor by ending it. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. Part of why I'm where I am right now is because you left. So, genuinely, thank you. Her face did something I couldn't read. Second, I don't want to try again. Not next month. Not next year. Not ever. And I want to be really clear about that because I know how your brain works, and I know that you'll leave here and tell yourself I said not right now, and a year from now you'll turn up again. So I'm telling you, not now. Not later. No, Theo, I wasn't. I'm not finished. She stopped. It isn't anger. I'm not saying it to hurt you. I'm saying it because it's true. The man you wanted when you left doesn't exist anymore. The man you want now is somebody you only want because other people find him interesting, and if I came back, within a year you'd find a new way to be bored with me. That's not your fault. That's just how it works when someone mistakes a person for a lifestyle. You don't want me. You want the shape of the life around me, and I'm not willing to be the furniture in that life again. She was crying harder now. I didn't move. That's harsh, she said finally. It's not harsh. Harsh will be what you said over dinner. This is just accurate. Watch it, I thought. You can afford Grace here. She is not your problem, but she was once your person. You can close the door without slamming it. I softened my voice. I wish you well, Claire. I actually do. I hope you figure out what you want without using a person to figure it out. I think you're capable of that. I think it'll take work, and I hope you do the work, because you deserve a good life. Just not with me. She sat for a moment. She wiped her face. She nodded slowly, and I watched her absorb, in real time, the fact that the conversation was not going to have any of the branches she had planned for. Can I one thing, she said. Yeah. Are you seeing someone? I considered lying. I considered several kinds of truth. Yes. Is it serious? Claire. Right. Sorry. She stood up. She adjusted her coat, and for a second her hands didn't know what to do, and I almost stepped forward to do something kind with them. Take them. Hold them. Offer her the thing you offer someone you used to love when they are visibly in pain. I did not. That gesture belongs to the man she remembers. I am not that man. He did her a lot of kindnesses that she cashed and didn't count. He is retired. I walked her to the door. I opened it. Goodbye, Claire. Goodbye, Theo. She stepped out. She hesitated, one foot in the hallway. The life you built. Yes. You really did build it, didn't you? I really did. She nodded. She walked away down the hall, and I watched her for maybe 2 seconds, and then I closed the door. I stood there for a minute with my hand still on the knob. Then I went back to the kitchen. I picked up the knife. I kept prepping. Isolde arrived first, as she always does, which is one of the things I love about her. Bram was parking. She walked in with a bottle of something and her usual expression, which is a kind of permanent raised eyebrow. You look weird, she said, without preamble. What happened? Claire was here. What? 20 minutes ago. Theo. It's fine. She said what she needed to say. I said what I needed to say. She left. Isolde put the bottle on the counter and looked at me very hard, the way she looks at a spreadsheet when she knows something doesn't add up. And you're okay? I'm great, actually. Don't give me great. Give me real. I thought about it. I started, and I realized I was searching for the right word, and the word I landed on surprised me a little. Finished. Finished. Yeah, like there was a piece of that whole thing that hadn't closed. I didn't know it was open until she was standing in my living room, but there was a door somewhere in me that was still cracked. And I watched myself close it, and I could hear it click. Isolde considered this. Then she opened a drawer, found the corkscrew without looking, and opened the bottle. Okay, she said. Good. Bram came in, carrying a wooden board he'd made. A gift, apparently, which is what he does. The man cannot walk into a home empty-handed. He kissed Isolde on the temple and nodded at me. Everything all right? Everything's all right, I said. My sister arrived with her husband. Kofi arrived with a bottle of something from the country I'd stayed in longest, which made me laugh. We sat out on the patio because the autumn air was clean and the heat lamp was doing its job, and I served the dinner I had made, and people ate it and said the things people say when food is good, and I watched them, really watched them, and thought about the specific geometry of the table. 6 people, all of whom I had chosen, all of whom had chosen me, none of whom, I noticed, would ever describe me as boring. Not because I had become some kind of spectacle. I was still mostly the same person, quiet in the same ways. But because when you surround yourself with people who can actually see you, boring becomes a word that describes rooms rather than men. Claire had called me boring in a room where she could not see me. It had been an accurate description of the room. I raised a glass. I didn't make a speech. I'm not a speech guy. I just said, thanks for being here, and everyone raised theirs, and Kofi said something in his language that was probably a toast, and probably also a little filthy, and my sister laughed in her napkin. Later, when everyone had left and Bram was helping me clear the patio, he is constitutionally incapable of leaving a mess, which Isolde complains about in the way you complain about a gift. He said, without looking at me, Isolde told me about earlier. Yeah. You want to talk about it? No. Good answer. He stacked the last plate. He put his hand on my shoulder for a second, the way he does, and then he went inside. I stood on the patio for a minute alone. The heat lamp clicked. Somewhere in the next building, a window closed. She was right about one thing, I thought. I was a draft. She just thought she was the reader. She wasn't. She was a note in the margin. I was the one holding the pen the whole time. I turned off the lamp. I went inside. I washed the last of the dishes. I went to bed. I slept, as I had for almost 2 years now, like a man who does not owe anyone an explanation. There's one last thing, and then I'll stop. A week later, I got an email from her. Short. No subject line. Theo, you were right about everything. I won't contact you again. I hope she's wonderful. I hope you're happy. I really do. See, I read it twice. Then I archived it. I did not reply. Not out of cruelty, out of completion. A reply would reopen something that was at last closed. And I came home 2 days after that. I picked her up from the airport. She threw her bag in the back seat and climbed in and kissed me and said, God, I missed you. Tell me everything I missed. And I thought about it, about whether to mention Claire, about whether it would be a secret, about what honesty required here versus what it only performed. Not much, I said. Dinner on the patio. Bram made a board. My sister got drunk on your Riesling. Annex showed up to apologize. Annex showed up to apologize? Yeah. And I said no. She looked at me for a second, the streetlights sliding across her face. Was it hard? I thought about it honestly. About the gray chair, and the rehearsed tears, and the small clean click I'd heard inside my chest when the door closed. No, I said. It wasn't hard at all. She reached over and put her hand on my knee, and we drove home, and that was the whole thing.
Thanks for listening.